What had happened in America 20, 25 years ago is starting to happen here on the African continent, which is this rise, an unprecedented rise of these non-communicable lifestyle diseases, diabetes, cancer, hypertension, respiratory conditions are starting to affect Africans, whereas 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, they were almost non-existent there. And a lot of it has to do with lifestyles. You have a growing middle class, growing economies, growing disposable income. They're adopting more of the lifestyles they're seeing on television, they're seeing on Netflix, they're seeing in the movies. And behind that lifestyle, Western lifestyle, are coming the lifestyle diseases. And so a lot of people are experiencing these particular conditions. And one of the reasons that made me come back home was I was a place where I had achieved a certain measure of financial success, but I was unhealthy. I was unhappy. And I said I was going to come back home, come back to nature. And that's where we are standing right now. Back to nature farms, because I got back home, finding all these things that were happening with the suffering and pain and premature death from these diseases, and said, let's go ahead with a few other like minds I was able to associate with and launch and catalyze the movement called the Back to Nature movement. And Back to Nature movement is simply based on a very simple philosophy and ideology, that the closer we are to nature, the more whole, happy, at peace, at ease we are. The further we get away from nature into processed foods and junk foods and all the rest, we get into a state of dis-ease, which is the root word of disease. So that's what got me into farming, and particularly organic farming, with all the pesticides, with all the agricultural chemicals that they put on that are causing so much damage to people's lives, that are being sold to a lot of farmers. By the way, would you know, Wodamaya, there are several pesticides, chemicals that have been banned in Europe, they've been banned in America, but are still being sold to farmers through agri-vets here in Africa. Why is that? And it's the reason they've been banned in those other countries is because they're carcinogenic, and they're causing cancers, they're causing a lot of sickness. And so that's one of the reasons that we launched the Back to Nature Organic Farms.
You know what? You need to take me around the farm.
Yes.
Let me check what you've planted so far.
Excellent. No problem. Only one thing. You've got to eat at least something small from this farm here today.
How many?
You know, we know we're putting good food on people's table. Then what am I? There's could be nothing that's more fulfilling. Not running around in a rat race in a concrete jungle in America, trying to duck and hide from police, trying to run away from the system that's always trying to get you. So, absolutely. Yes.
If you have a message for your fellow brothers and sisters in the diaspora, if you want to tell them to come back home, what would that message be?
The message will be, particularly to those of African ancestry, even though we do know that all humanity started in Africa, all humans on the earth eventually, and this is proven scientifically, their genes trace back to Africans, but particularly the Africans who look like Wodamaya and myself who are on the earth today. We have an African civilizational inheritance, which has been disinherited from us. Part of claiming that heritage, Wodamaya, particularly our civilizational heritage, is repatriating first mentally and psychologically, and eventually physically, eventually spiritually. If you've ever lived outside of Africa, you know people that look like us, Wodamaya, always find ourselves catching the short end of the stick everywhere in the world. We always find ourselves being the most disadvantaged. It is on this land that we currently stand that we have the greatest opportunity to be the fullest, to realize our fullest potential as human beings. And so we're not saying, because 80% of my time I spend here, 20% of my time I spend over there. We're not saying you have to be here 100% of the time, but you've got to come. And Wodamaya, let's come down a little bit. You've got to come and reconnect with Mama Nature, with Mama Africa, back to nature. And there's nothing that can replicate that. There's no amount of money, there's no amount of fame, there's no amount of cars, houses that can be able to to give us, Odemaya, this feeling, this experience that we have when we connect with the earth that we come from. So come back home, get to experience what this man experiences every day of his life, traveling around the world, traveling around Africa and all the countries, and getting a chance to give us experiences. I told him, Odemaya, what you're really doing is therapy. You're giving people psychological therapy, especially Africans, because we've been so poisoned psychologically with images that show us ourselves in negative lights, less than human beings, 3/5 of a human being. But what this man does, which is we cannot even pay him back for, he gets a chance to psychologically give us therapy and shows ourselves in a positive image. The narrative of Africa changes. So asante sana, my brother. I know.
I don't have corona. Don't worry. I want to say thank you so much for taking me around your farm, and I hope people can reach out to you on this email I'm going to put on the screen.
Excellent.
People can reach out to you on your number so that they'll be able to buy stuff from this farm. It's by force to buy from. Is it?
Back to Nature Organic Farms.
I wanted to mention your name, but I couldn't remember.
Kunga Kihokia.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.